playlist after these calls.
It's
I'm like,
always on Spotify.
no, I'm always like, oh, I don't know this song. I like it. So, ladies, thanks for making the time. I know that as we get closer and closer to the summer, schedules get busier and busier and they get more full of things that become urgent. So, we appreciate the fact that you were able to make it today. And as always, we record this because the content that we are getting from our panelists and from the collection of feedback that you post and the questions that you ask as an audience, we find is having a big impact on a lot of people. I'm hearing post conversations from women that are on these calls. They're using some of these nuggets and they're passing them through their region, and then they're just discussing them and finding ways that are adding a lot of value. So even if there's a future call where you're like, I just can't make that exact time, we have a region call then, we always make sure to record them and post them in the Facebook group so that you have the opportunity to revisit it or listen on your own time again to a certain section. What we love to do when we kick off this call, though, no matter how many we have with you live and present in the moment, we always want to do a type of connection exercise, because as just a reminder again of the biggest one, some of the two biggest reasons that Shelby and I really wanted to provide this platform and this space was one, for content and to be able to showcase and use this as a platform for so many of our female leaders in the company. And that benefits so many of you as you're growing and building your own business. And then the second reason is a networking opportunity. I really do feel from my experience that the more colleagues that you can connect with and have an opportunity to get to know better, it just makes the business more fun. And I know that some of you come from a region and a division that you're like, hey, there's lots of us. There's lots of, men, women, we're all really connected, and that's cool. And if that is the case, awesome. Then you keep spreading that around the whole company. That's great. And if that's not the case, this is another resource. And so one of the ways that we can build those connections is through having meaningful conversations and asking good questions and being a great listener and getting to know people's stories. Because I have found the more that we find out of each other, the more we have in common. And that's, sometimes we think we're the only ones going through or having certain, conversations or thoughts or feelings. And sometimes the more people we meet, the more we get to find that might not be the case. So what I wanted to do as the connection question to kick it off, and then we're going to jump actually right into the panelists. And then after the panelists, we're actually going to have some other discussion too. So what I want to do, how many of you have read the 4 Agreements? And oh yes, all right, a couple of you. Some of you haven't. Okay, cool. So the 4 Agreements. It is a book by Don Miguel Ruiz. It's a book I actually read every year. Every year I feel like I need to revisit, and then it's a great reminder again. So my sister-in-law gave me a card deck actually from the book. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a card, and the question on the card is going to be our discussion question, connection question to get going. All right. So here we go with the card right in the middle. So there's 4 agreements in the book. Okay. And this is one of the agreements. It says, always do your best. It says, surrender and let go of the past. And on the flip side, it says, so what I'm going to get you to do, I'll repeat this question a couple of times. So I'll repeat the statement. But what I'm going to ask you to do is you're going to jot down whatever comes up for you from these thoughts, okay? So whatever life takes away from you, let it go. When you surrender and let go of the past, you allow yourself to be fully alive in the moment. Letting go of the past means that you can enjoy the dream that is happening right now. So I'll repeat that again. So the agreement that it's referring to is to always do your best. And the main quote is surrender and let go of the past. And so I'm going to repeat this again and give you just a minute to think about it. What comes up for you with this? Okay. So whatever life takes away from you, let it go. When you surrender and let go of the past, you allow yourself to be fully alive in the moment. Letting go of the past means that you can enjoy the dream that is happening right now. And if you've read the book, you kind of have an idea of what he means when he talks about the dream. So let go of the past. By doing that, you can enjoy the dream that is happening right now. So I'll give you another 30 seconds. Maybe it's some words that pop up for you. Maybe it's a situation. Maybe it's a person. Maybe it's a thing. You know, what do you think of when you think of that thought by Don Miguel Ruiz? So what we'll do is we'll go into pairs, and you'll get an opportunity to take about a minute each to share what comes up for you from this card. All right. So whatever life takes away from you, let it go. When you surrender and let go of the past, you allow yourself to be fully alive in the moment. Letting go of the past means you can enjoy the dream that is happening right now. So surrender. So when you see the blue button, go ahead and jump on as we're going into breakouts. And you want to just make sure that you add your title and your location, your office. That would be great. But add your summer title. So if you happen to run a branch this summer or a district this summer, just put DMC and then the territory you'll have or the region you're from. Actually, the region is what we need. So that'd be great. Awesome. Super. All right. Well, what we're going to do at this, just on that note, does anybody want to share something that came up in your conversation from what that card brought up? Or you want to maybe appreciate your partner for something they brought up? I'd love to hear a little bit about what that card brought up for some of you before we go into the panelists.
Yeah, I could go ahead and share.
Great.
So something that me and Marissa were talking about is like neither of us expected to be here, and this last year has been full of like detours and like not getting like exactly what we thought we would be getting out of this last year, but we're both in the management opportunity, and we're just like taking every opportunity as they come up.
That's cool. So kind of letting go of the plan that was supposed to be happening, right? And being more open to what is happening right now. That's awesome. Thanks, Carla. That's great.
Yeah.
Great. Who else wants to share something that came up? I'm sure that card pulled up different things for different people. So I'd love for someone to share. Libby, you got to share. So either you got something else going on, but you're smiling. So I'd love you to share.
Well, I know that Gabby and I talked about quite a bit of, mindfulness and, experiences that we've had. And then it was just actually something that kind of came across of really like the 5-minute rule. I don't know if people are familiar with the 5-minute rule of everyone's like, yeah. So it's just like that kind of came up, and I was talking a little bit about that. But I mean, it is very true. Like something that I was just saying of like my own experience is like, many times I may not even realize that I am like in the past. Maybe something is like triggering me, and then I'm like in the past and I don't realize, and I have to just remember to go back to the present and things like that. It's absolutely very true, because then I'm not really enjoying the dream that is in front of me. So that's like, really huge takeaway for me.
Awesome. I think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, if I'm like half there and half here, I don't get the fullness of anything. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Fantastic. All right, great. Well, I hope that stirred up some good conversation for you to connect with each other. So I'm going to pass this over to Shelby. And if you want to make me co-host, I think I can help spotlight our panelists the three of you, if you want, Shelby, and then you can fire away.
Yeah, just made you the co-host.
Awesome.
All right, cool. Hi, everybody. We are really excited to be back with another Vector Executive Women's Mastermind, this time featuring two new DMs. Well, they're not new DMs, but two new speakers on our panel today, Kristina James from the Western region and Joelle Hertzog from the Northeast region. I do have to do a little asterisk there. I said Joelle Moyer in all of the promotions. She is somewhat newly married, and her married name is Joelle Hertzog. So taking full responsibility for messing that one up. but I got it right this time around. So I'm glad for that. But I'm really excited to introduce both of these wonderful women to our group today. Before I do that, I wanted to share kind of like an upgrade that Angie and I have been talking about in terms of really creating a great conversation, not just with Kristina and Joelle, but with everybody. So as we're asking the questions and as we're kind of diving into this interview, if at any point you as a listener hear a question that you want to answer yourself or give a thought or an input to, please put it in the chat box. You know, I think it's a really great opportunity for us to not only hear from these two leaders, but everybody. And so don't be shy in putting your own response in the chat box. And there might be some opportunities to bring your voice forward in this panel as well. So wanted to put that out there. It's going to be something new. We haven't done this before, but let's go ahead and introduce our two panelists today. So we have Kristina James here, and Kristina is born and raised from Las Vegas, but her dad was in the Navy. So she traveled a lot, and she started selling Cutco in August of 2015 in Fairfax, Virginia. She decided to move out and stay in Virginia. She had her associate's degree in psychology, has held every position below a division manager. She was promoted to assistant manager at the end of September 2015, then sales manager at the end of January 2016, then Dom at the end of August of 2016 until September of 2017, moved to the South Coast Division in October of 2017, has worked in 5 different offices, branched in Hemet, is that how you pronounce it? Hemet in the summer of 2018, did not have a great summer, but wanted to try again. She's a 2-time Only in Push winner, has hit over $400,000 in sales, has been a branch twice in North Las Vegas. She earned the number 3 branch in the division and number 6 in the region, grew business by 156%. In 2020, she was the number 1 new DM in the division and number 6 in the region. And in 2021, number 1 DM in division and number 10 nationally. She would say that she was pretty average though. And as a rep and as a first branch, she was just determined to grow every year. Personally speaking, again, she's born and raised in Las Vegas. Dad is in the Navy, so has lived in Virginia for 6 years, but eventually moved back to the West Coast to be closer to family. She married Laura Latasse-James in 2018, congratulations, and has 2 pit bulls, Luna and Luke. She loves spending time with family, watching movies, building Legos with her wife, Star Wars, and comics. I love this intro, Kristina. It's great to have you here. Thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you.
Let's go over to Joelle Hertzog. So Joelle started back in Vector in late June of 2015. She was a PR, and originally she's from Pottsville, Pennsylvania. She did Cutco through college while attending Penn State Schuylkill, where she also played collegiate basketball and softball. She earned 6 college credits while working with Cutco and ran a branch office in 2017 in Berks County, Pennsylvania, before going into her senior year of college. She realized then how much she loved selling Cutco, and her calling was to be in leadership. She graduated from Penn State Schuylkill magna cum laude with a 3.89 GPA. She was selected to run the Lehigh Valley District office and opened in May 2018, right as she graduated from college. She got married this past September to her best friend, Nate, and they're currently looking to buy their first investment property this year. She's currently at $1.5 million in career sales, and her goal is to help her district team hit $1.5 million for 2021, while having a lot of fun and growing a ton in the process. Some fun facts about Joelle is she loves to draw and paint. She learned how to hunt this past year, and she's a big horseback rider. So as you can see, we've got 2 incredible women here with us today, and I am so excited to dive in. So Kristina, we're going to start off with you. This first question here, again, I want to encourage everybody to really reflect on their own too as I ask this question, but Kristina, can you describe your leadership style to the group?
Yeah, when the question came up too, I was like, what is my leadership style? And I guess because we had this talk in TLA, and so I guess what I came up with is more just like leading from love than anything. Like I 100% just love talking to my people. Even some of my DVMs have said that, where maybe my heart's a little too big, where I will probably let people get away with some stuff. But I think that's a big thing, is I really just love connecting with my reps. I love learning fun facts about them, all the random things they want to tell me. Sometimes they tell me too much, but I, I still enjoy it. And I think that's my huge thing, is I think my reps know that I care about, everything, even outside the business. They can rely on me if they need anything. My wife says that I adopt all the AMs that families maybe are not as close to them. So I'm just kind of like, yeah, it's fine. I'll my family will be your family now. It's okay. So I don't know. I just really love caring about my people. I want to make sure that they know that I can help them in any sense, even if it doesn't have to pertain to business.
That's great. And I can feel the energy exuding from the computer right here. It's very clear that you truly do love on your people. And in the chat box right now, I'd love for all of you to share if you resonate. Do you love on your people, or are you excited to love on your people? Now, Kristina, what you described really is a family environment, a family culture. How has that impacted the productivity of your team and the culture of your team?
I honestly, my productivity never used to be very good. That's why it's kind of interesting this year. I don't think I've really ever broke 1,000 when it came to my PPR. And so this year it's way higher now, and I'm kind of trying to figure it out, I think, on my own as well. But I really do think it's just that they know, like, hey, no matter what you do, I'm going to be proud of you. No matter what happens, no matter what results you get, I'm going to be excited about the effort that you put in. Like I had one who was really close to being a 10K fast starter and ended up having a return on the last day, which made him an 8K fast starter. And so, he was kind of upset. And I remember him even calling, and he was like, I don't think it's going to happen. And I was like, oh, you know what? No matter what, like, I'm excited for you. Like, you're great. You're awesome. Like, Cutco's great. You're still going to be here. It's not like this is the end or anything like that. So, just continue to keep working hard, but I'm excited about the effort that you put in. I'm excited for you and what you're going to do, who you're going to become, because this is just the start. And I think that really resonates with a lot of people who, I think maybe some of my reps have families that are not as, I think, invested in them as I am, and for them to know, like, hey, it's okay, whatever you do, I'm still going to be here for you. I'm still going to be excited about you. And I'm still excited about whatever, comes out of this. So I think that just makes them feel really good. And then when they do make those sales, they're like, like I did it for the team, not just like, oh, I did it for me. It's like, oh yeah, look what I was able to contribute. So.
When people feel good, they do good work. Right? And it's very clear that you help people feel really good about themselves. I loved what you said about getting excited over effort. And I think that's an important reminder, especially as we work with a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds who are coming from an environment, school, where they're judged based on their results, right? Their test results and their SATs and ACTs and all these things, they're just judged based on that. And sometimes people need to see that the effort is really what matters. And Kristina, what you just shared makes a lot of sense. And it's very clear why your team loves you so much, and vice versa. Joelle, I saw you nodding a lot as Kristina was sharing. So I'm going to ask you the same question, but if you want to respond to Kristina first, please do.
Kristina, I was cracking up because when I first saw this question, I was like, do I have like a style? Like, I was like, I just feel like I don't really know the answer to this question. I called John yesterday. John Wasserman's my division manager. And I was like, I just want to make sure I'm answering this correctly. He's like, I think you're definitely, I'm not an overthinker, but I was like, that's the first question. I obviously want to answer it well. But no, it's pretty similar in a way, as far as like, I definitely like to come from a place of like energy and enthusiasm. And it's kind of like it motivate and inspire, and then not require. So I kind of think the best way for someone to get the results that they want is making a good plan. So I think I really make sure to do my best as far as the people on my team, my office, is giving them a good roadmap as far as like, hey, if you want to be successful, this is exactly what it's going to take. And making sure we have some structure as far as when we're doing things. And I'm pretty hands-on when it comes to schedules and goals submitted. So that way I know exactly what they're trying to do for the week. Now, I'm not trying to tell them what their goal should be. I want that to be theirs 100%. But then just really showing them how to get there. And, it's kind of more like, hey, I'll help you make the roadmap, but it's up to you to follow it. And that way people are learning how to take ownership from the results. Whether, hey, like if they had a really great week, that wasn't me, that was you. You did all of that. You made all those phone calls. You connected with all of those customers. You're the one that got the good results. But at the same time, like, hey, if you didn't do well, take ownership of that too, whether you didn't follow the schedule or what you said you were going to do. So it's just more teaching ownership. I think I'm a little bit more hands off. I love to lead with energy and heart, but I don't think I'm as open hearted as Kristina is. But I think it's still something where I think I come from somewhere in the middle, as far as like definitely not like a hammer with things. I'm not a huge lover, I guess you could say, but I'm somewhere in between where it's like, hey, I'll give you everything you need. I'll give you support. My job is to answer your questions, but it's your job to ask me questions. So I'm kind of somewhere in the middle where I'm expecting them to put in effort. And of course, I'm going to give them that effort right back in return.
So it's a great point, Joelle, that you just brought up of how you're different than what Kristina described. There's a lot of similarities, sure, but there's also a lot of differences. And I think that's a huge point that I want to emphasize for the group in general, is that one person's leadership style does not have to be a one size fits all. And the truth is, everybody on this call has a unique capability, a unique quality, a unique characteristic that really makes them a leader. And again, as you begin thinking about this to everybody in the group, try to identify what is one of those unique characteristics. And maybe, for Kristina, it's unapologetic love. And for Joelle, it's understanding, how to get a plan together for somebody and teaching that ownership. And Joelle, I love what you said about motivate and inspire, not require, because I'm sure anyone that's led a team before can understand the feeling of exhaustion sometimes when you're like constantly requiring things of people versus inspiring them and motivating them and having them show up because they want to be here, not because you're requiring them to be here. So I really appreciated what you just shared there. Something else that I wanted to pull out that I would love either of you to kind of remark on is this idea of creating ownership for people. And something that I've been teaching lately is everyone's heard the analogy, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't teach them to drink, right? Many of you have probably heard this before. And as you're going into leadership, it's a tried and true analogy. It's, you can give the roadmap to people and you can lay it out for them. But if they're not willing to walk it, that's on them, that's not on you. But the truth is, when you take a combination of what Kristina does and what Joelle does, you have the ability to inspire people and create that intrinsic motivation where you're leading them to water, but they're choosing to drink because they have that intrinsic motivation. They have that deeper why underneath them. So I appreciate both of you bringing that up. My dog is barking because he agrees too. So let's move on to the second question here, and feel free, by the way, to kind of jump in and respond to anything that I'm sharing as well. But Kristina, I'd love to go back over to you and talk about how you set up your personal goals and like your personal plans, because you've had a breakout year. And as you described in your bio, you've held almost every position you possibly can hold. So can you touch a little bit on how you kind of grown over time and planning and prepping and really getting yourself in the right headspace and organizational space?
Yeah. I think before I didn't plan at all, which is hence why I'm growing now. But something that I use is my division manager. I think I even pulled it up so I can share it if I need to. But my division manager gave us this thing. It's it's weekly projections. And so how I break down my goals is I've always done the must do, should do, could do, like the 3 ranks of my goals. And so it's like our absolute, like, hey, this is what we're going to do. It doesn't matter. Like I could get hit by a bus and this is what's going to happen. And then we have our should do, and then our could do goals of like, hey, imagine what that would look like. And so I kind of break everything down. I'm not sure if I'm able to, and so this is what it looks like. But this was made, I think, by one of the Frank brothers. I'm not positive, but my division manager shared it with us. And I'm one of those people that I'm just very, all you have to do is you just plug the numbers in, like your launch goal, and then you plug in your percentages here, like everything that was accurate there. And it kind of tells you based off of how many you want to launch and all of your PPR, your show, all that stuff, how much is going to come out of it. And I used to try to break everything up like weekly of like, okay, well, because, it's this time of the year, we're going to do this much and recruit this many people. And I have no idea how to do that, if I'm being honest. And so I literally just came up with like a recruiting goal and I'm like, okay, cool, this is what we're going to do. And then I just divide it by the amount of weeks in the year. And so then I can kind of just like keep my team on track with that. I'm like, okay, cool. This is what we're going to be selling. This is how many people need to show up to team meeting. And so I honestly try to keep everything very just like, okay, hey, these are the bare minimums that we need to hit. We need to set this many PRs today. We need to have this many people set for training. We need to launch this many. We need this many people to show up for for team meetings, set this many demos, and then we'll hit all these goals. And I keep everything very, I guess, bare minimum. If like, hey, you know, once again, at the lowest standard, this is what we would be at. We should 100% be able to hit our goal. So honestly, even our recruiting is really, really behind. But because we've kept all projections for our people really low, it allows us to still hit our goal for the base team. So most of our weeks actually now have been the base team, and even just the people we've added on. But it's just making sure everybody hits their goal. So on in staff meetings, we also sit down and go through every single rep, each one for the week. And we're just like, okay, cool. How much do we think this person could do? How much do we think this person could do? And driving them to those numbers. And sometimes I even let people know like, hey, this is my projection for you. It may be less than what you think it could be, but I'm planning like worst case scenario. This is what I think you'd be able to do so that we could hit our goal as a team. How do you feel about that number? Do you think you could do more? Do you feel like you could do less? What's the week looking like for you? Like, how are you feeling mentally about this? And most people are like, oh yeah, for sure I can hit that. Some people are even like, oh no, I'm gonna like do double that. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, bare minimum, you hit this number, we're good to go, and we'll hit our goal as a team. And so that's usually how weeklies go and for the campaign. And so I've done that for every single campaign. I already have this little spreadsheet filled out.
Wow. Yeah. Like what Joelle said in the chat box, that is beautiful. This spreadsheet, it looks awesome. And I'm sure people would appreciate if you could share it if possible. You know, something that I thought of when you were sharing, Kristina, is how you treat your business like a business. And I think that is a big shift that a lot of our up and coming managers make at some point. Some make it earlier than others, but this isn't just a hobby. This isn't just something you decided to do. It's a business. And when you treat it like a business, you get results like it's a business. So can you touch on briefly, like what was that shift for you? Because you said before you were really not a big planner, maybe you weren't as organized, and now you have a whole spreadsheet dedicated to all of your projections at every single level. So what did that shift do for you, maybe from a mindset standpoint?
I think once I really simplified everything, it made me feel better because I felt like I kept overcomplicating things. And when I did, it would stress me out. I'm like, oh my God, there's so much I have to do to figure out like how to do this and this and this. And that spreadsheet made it so easy because it was literally like plug two numbers in. It was like, here are your numbers from last year. And I plugged that in and I'm like, cool, this is how many we want to recruit. And that was it. And I plugged that in. And so then it was just looking like, okay, cool. Well, we just need to make sure we launch this mini. And so our goals have actually changed. And so that's why it's updated now. And technically we're behind because I was like, oh, well, we are like ridiculously ahead of what we projected before. So now things have to move and we have to change them. But that's really all I did is I just looked at it and I was like, okay, well, let's just plug a new number in. And we just put that in there. And we're just like, okay, well, now we just need to make sure we recruit this many people, this many days. And I just kind of divide everything just to make it simple for myself. I don't try to figure out like, this is when we'll sell the most on, we sell the most on the weekend. So we're going to do this much here. We sell the most on this day or recruit the most here. Because that just makes me overwhelmed. I literally just like, hey, this is our end goal. And then I work backwards. I'm just like, okay, let's just divide it and then divide it and divide it until, you know, I know how much we need to do in a day. And that's pretty much it. And it just made me feel a lot like simpler and I guess at ease. Cause I was like, okay, cool. This is all we have to do. Like just hit these benchmarks and we're good.
So I know that you mentioned you don't break it down crazily, but in a way you kind of do, like you break it down to the day.
Yeah.
Back to what Jenna Gahn shared a few weeks ago, where she breaks it down or a few months ago, where she breaks it down to the ridiculous. And I think, you know, for everyone that's listening, whether or not you were able to follow everything that Kristina just laid out because of the Excel sheet, it doesn't really matter. What matters is the main point is that you have a plan and you have a system that you follow. Kristina has an Excel spreadsheet. She's got a system that she follows, that she understands this is what needs to get done on a daily basis. So I love that you shared that with us. And I would love if you could share that with the group in the Facebook group. Thank you. Joelle, go over to you and share with us what are you doing to kind of plan on a weekly or campaign basis?
Yeah. So I think I've found this past year, it's actually kind of hard to like project goals right now because everything looks so different than it did a year ago. We were just figuring things out last year. So, it's like there's a chance for things to be huge. So I think one of the best things, I think for me, when I'm setting up goals, it's like I usually like to start with the end in mind. So it's like, okay, what do I want to do for the year? Right? What do I want to do? Like, what's my yearly goal? And then we're breaking it down realistically. It's okay, what does that look like per campaign? And I think it's really helpful looking at, previous campaigns, but obviously the business that we're in now is completely different, even than a year ago, and just figuring things out. So I think having a DVM and like really diving into like, hey, even asking for their key insight, especially if you're new or you're opening your office, like, hey, what is a good number? I love that Kristina talked about, a must do, a should do, and a could do goal. Must do being kind of like that negative motivator. It's like, no matter what, I need to make sure I hit this number. I'm going to be like PO'd at myself. Your should do is kind of more what you're basing your goals off of. Like, yeah, this is what I should do based off of my talent, based off of my staff, right? And of course, having that could do goal of like, hey, if everything goes right, this is what I could hit. And like kind of like that dreamer. And I'm not super like vision oriented or like painting the picture. Like I'm not super creative or descriptive in that way. But it is nice kind of giving myself that like that game plan. But yeah, starting with the end in mind, breaking it down per campaign, and then just kind of knowing based off of like your PPR, it's like, okay, basically if that's the number I want to hit in sales, right? This is how many people I need to recruit. And then breaking the recruiting goal per week, and then just finding out, hey, how many people do I need to have set for training each week? That's like my number. And that's also something you may want to have like, hey, this is my must do, should do, could do goal. It's like my must do, I need to have 15 set every single week for training. Otherwise I'm mad, right? Something's wrong, right? But really I'm shooting for like that 20 to 30 range. And could I, have 50 plus set every single week, right? So it's kind of nice knowing and balancing sales and recruiting, and it's really going back and forth with those two numbers because one really impacts the other. But as far as on a weekly basis, I love what we do is like a planning session every single Monday. It's kind of like an extra team meeting, but we spend 30 minutes, even currently right now, just setting up our schedules for the week. That's where I have reps. We kind of focus on, while they're planning, I'm also planning too, but knowing what they're projecting and they're looking to do versus instead of it's a little bit different for me. It's like, hey, I think you could sell 1,000 this week. It's more of like, hey, how much money do you want to make this week? Breaking that down. Okay, how many demos per day, or how many demos this week do we need to do? Right. But it's like, you tell me how much you want to do. All right. And then what's nice is like doing that on a Monday, and everyone's submitting their demo goals for each day. And we're using the Vector Impact app. So I love that because then it automatically uploads to Web PDI. And I can see what days people are looking to do demos. And based off of those demo goals, it kind of helps me see how realistic is our sales goal for the week based off of what our current team is looking to do. And then also it's like, hey, how much do I need to focus on training on really helping, first weekend PPR? So, that first weekend pop. So I think there's a lot of different things that go into that. But I really like to start backwards. Starting with the end in mind, and then work my way backwards from there. And then look at my current team, work with my staff, see what we need to work on for the week, and then just make sure that, I'm just following up with my coaching calls and with PCs to firm up the person's schedule and their goals that they submitted for the week. And that way I kind of work from there. So I guess that's kind of as far as a little bit different than what, Kristina talked about. Those are a couple of things that have been working for us, is just having a planning session every single week for each of our reps to do planning inside and outside of the business. And then feeling good about the goals that they're submitting for Vector for that week. And that really helps me plan my weekly goal, and knowing what days are going to be big move days, what days are going to be, less demos that day because of classes. So it just helps me kind of project what it's really looking like.
Well, one big theme I heard in both of what Kristina and Joelle just said was they start with the end in mind. And another theme was kind of leaning on their DVM. Kristina leaned on her DVM because of that Excel spreadsheet, and Joelle, same thing, not with the spreadsheet, but with other aspects of the planning. And so, for some of our newer leaders listening, if the idea of filling out a huge Excel spreadsheet is overwhelming, or the idea of having to know all of the numbers right from the start is overwhelming, it's okay. Lean on your DVM the same way Kristina and Joelle have. And both of these women are seasoned in the business. So they know their numbers, they know their PPR, they know their averages. And for some of you listening who don't know any of that, your DVM can give you a really good starting point to work off of. And then as you continue to progress throughout the summer, you might get to a point like, okay, you know what? I know my PPR. I can plan my July better than I could plan my June because you understand your numbers a little bit better. But all in all, when it comes to planning, I would say, take what you've heard from Kristina and Joelle and apply parts of it that you feel good about. But if there's anything that feels overwhelming, that's okay. Lean on your DVM because they're there to help you too. So let's move on to the next question here. Kristina, again, you've had a breakout year. And I know part of it has to do a lot with your sales, of course, and your recruiting, but I'm wondering if there's another part of it that has to do with personal development and just kind of your commitment to growing as a leader. So can you share what your personal development routine looks like? And do you have any resources that you could share with the group?
Yeah, I will actually say a lot of it is my personal growth and what I put into myself. Is last year I kind of made the decision to, I think, focus on myself a lot more and be a little bit more selfish. And so I did invest in, I got 2 coaches last year. So I think some people on here probably work with him, but I work with Mike too. And then I also have an emotional intelligence coach with Danica Grady. And I've been working with her a lot longer. And I think that helped a lot as well, just because during certain points, I definitely was one of those people that really connected my sales and my results to, I guess, my identity. And like, if we were doing bad, then it's like, well, then I felt bad. If we were doing good, then I felt good. And kind of learning to separate those two, I think has helped a lot, because now it's like, okay, yeah, if we have a bad week, we have a bad week, but it doesn't really, I guess, invalidate the type of person that I am. If we have a great week, well, awesome. We're just great. Like, that's what it is anyway. So I think those really helped of like separating that and creating this different mindset when I went into this year. And then just really focusing on my health, I think has helped a lot. I've honestly fallen off with that, but I think being aware of these things now has helped me a lot more of like, okay, cool. I know if I'm not drinking enough water, I know how I'm feeling. If I'm not eating enough, I know I'm feeling. So it's a lot easier to fix these things now versus just being like, well, why the heck am I so tired? Like, oh, I feel like I'm just so drained. Why can't I do this? Or why can't I do that? It's kind of like, I know now where my pitfalls are if anything does happen. So if I'm feeling a certain way, it's like I kind of know how to fix it a lot faster. And I think being more aware with those coaches has helped. So, like I have a morning routine where I wake up, I walk the dogs, make sure to drink 16 ounces of water. I'm supposed to be reading and meditating. I have not done that in a bit, but those are things I'm supposed to do in my morning routine. I have an evening routine where we have a digital sunset. So my wife and I put our phones in the bathroom an hour before we go to sleep. We try to read. We're not as good as like maybe with like the TV. Maybe we'll watch a show together at night, but we definitely put our phones away, and I know that's helped at least when it comes to sleeping. And then we're expecting to start having a family soon, so we've been reading more books together, stuff like that. But yeah, so I think those have been things that just help us feel a lot better. I make sure like every Saturday that's my, like, I call it family day. I don't schedule PCs or anything, especially by a certain point. Like I have a little bit of wiggle room in the morning where I'm like, okay, hey, if there's an emergency one, I'll have something in the morning, but by noon, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm unavailable for anything like that. I'll take phone calls and that's about it. But that's usually my wife's day. And so we have, we started a new thing because I had Lindsay come out for the weekend, and we were trying new restaurants. And I was like, oh, this would be cool. And so we started a new thing where every other week we'll try a new restaurant in Vegas because we're kind of homebodies, and so we don't like to go anywhere. And so we figured, we could try something new, just figure, stuff together. We do like pottery things together, but I think that also gives me energy because it's things I can look forward to at the end of the week of like, oh yeah, I have my Saturdays with my wife. And sometimes it is just us sitting on the couch, watching Marvel movies, or it's us going out, but making sure that I have that day as well, so I can kind of re-energize with her and feel like I'm also giving her time. So
I saw Joelle react to a lot of what you just shared, Kristina, and I think it's really cool to see how over the course of the last couple of years you've really found a way to have a beautiful life next to your beautiful business. And it's not like you're sacrificing one or the other for the other. You know what I mean? And I think it's really cool to hear what you're sharing. And I love that so much of your personal development routine has to do with making yourself whole and putting yourself first, because at the end of the day, everyone's heard this before. You can't pour from an empty cup. And I think it's really cool what you just shared. Joelle, let's go over to you, because I know that you're kind of in some similar situations as Kristina too, having just gotten married and kind of building this life for yourself.
No, for sure. I heard this and it just stuck with me so much. It's like, hey, build a business that you can't wait to get to, and then build a life that you can't wait to get home to. And I think that's definitely been on the forefront of me. Now it was something that I wasn't always good at, and I want to point that out. My first year as a DM, I feel like I put work before everything else, before my relationships, before like, you know, taking care of like my body, making sure I'm fueled the way I want to, and then that could lead to bitterness, even like towards myself and towards my relationships. So I really felt like, I think one of the biggest things and one of the most important things is kind of creating that good wheel of life, making sure things are balanced. I feel like I would show up better, for my office and for my team if I'm making sure that I'm having time for myself to work out, to be involved in my important relationships, to be continually growing in my faith. So I think it's making sure like, hey, what's important to me, and like relationships, my health, my mind, my spirituality, right? And also, and it's hard as a vector manager, and especially if you guys are getting newer and just getting started, time is something that's difficult. So it's like, hey, how can I kill two birds with one stone, right? Can I spend time with someone and work out with them? Right. What I do Zoom workouts with actually Nate's sister. She's done some like Zoom workouts and stuff. So we'll do it. We'll hop on Zoom together. So that's time for us to like get some time together, talk a little bit, but we're doing a workout together. So I'm getting that socialization. I'm fulfilling my relationships that are important, and I'm creating movement in my body, right? Can you, create a small group and work on your spirituality while getting to be focusing on your important relationships too? So it's like, hey, how can I feed multiple things in my body or take care of myself? So I think it's like kind of like, hey, what's important to me, and making sure you're making time for it, or at least knowing when is the next time you're going to be doing those things. And this allows me to have energy for everyone else. And I think that's really important, because that allows me to show up to work. But I'm also like, hey, I think the district manager opportunity is one of the best things, right? But also if I'm working 24/7, no one wants to have your job. No one wants to work all the time. So, but I also think it's also important about sharing that too, like with your staff and the people you're working with, and kind of sharing what other things you're working on. So if you listen to a podcast, like sharing that with them. The Changing Lives Selling Knives, I think is such a great podcast, and being able to listen to. So I love like when I hear something good, like sending it in a group me. I think that's fun. Also something else that I dove into, I think it was fun kind of to learn more about myself, was the Enneagram. I don't know if any of you guys are into the Enneagram at all. I absolutely love the Enneagram. I took the test, read a couple books on it, listened to a couple podcasts on it. If any of you guys are curious, I'm an Enneagram 8. So yes. Okay, Shelby, I can 100% see that. So it's great, as a great way for me to understand myself, but also have empathy for understanding why people think the way they think. I think that was a really helpful tool for me as a leader. First off, to understand myself and why I am the way that I am, but also understanding why people do things the way they do things. Like my sibling, my sister is a different number. And I always wondered like why, like we just couldn't, like we just had some friction on things. And I think it was a really cool thing to share with somebody, and we got to learn about each other, and it made sense. And it just gave me so much more grace for other people, especially for me as a manager, because I think especially my first year or two, it was like, why don't people just do things the way I do them? Or like when you assume someone's going to do things, or people process things, or appreciate things the way you do. And that's not true at all. People think so differently. So I think that was a great way for me to understand myself, but also understand that other people think differently, and that's okay. So I think that was a really great tool, and that was a lot of fun to learn more about. And it's also fun when you learn more about like different types that other people are. And it's just like, I don't know, it's just kind of fun relating on that level. Literally on here, I was going to say everyone should read the 4 agreements. So I love when Angie brought that up right away. And I was like, yes, I think especially for you guys that are about to run offices, it's the easiest. I'm not a great reader. I have like minor dyslexia. So I've honestly hated reading, and my reading and comprehension is not a strong suit for me. So I do like listening to things. But that book, I finished it in like 2 settings. It's a really easy, quick read. And I think for someone who leading other people and understand like, hey, you can lead a horse to a water, but you can't quite make it drink. And that was just like the most frustrating thing for me as a new manager, and just like why? Like, why aren't they drinking? But this book just really helped me immensely. And I'm like, okay, I just bought it for all my staff. So I just need to get it to them. But absolutely a great book for anybody that's about to be running or leading other people, and just learning how to lead yourself too. Other good things, like especially working virtually, just getting time outside. I was on a three-way call with John Fiacco and Paige Weber, and Paige was just like, yeah, sometimes I just need to take 10 minutes to just walk outside. I just need to feel air on my skin. And I just started doing it like the past couple weeks. And it is just like getting some time outside and just walking around, not even having my phone on me, just having an alarm on my watch, like to go off. So I know to like make sure I go turn around and walk back. But just appreciating time outside and like peacefulness and quiet, but also getting like that vitamin D and just feeling the wind, even how much that can like give you energy if you're feeling a little low or if you have some time in between things. I love that. But also I think one last thing on like personal development is just talking to other people, right? Talk to people outside of your division. Talk to people outside of your region. So I love that, Shelby and Angie have worked on creating this community as a way just to get connected to other people and share ideas. I love getting some key insight on other people like Mike Chu. He's fantastic. I worked with him last year. Jess DeMarcus, I coached with her too. She's Vector alumni. But it's nice to get connected with people like inside the business as well, and just kind of talk about best practices. So I think that's another big part of like personal development is just having a good wheel, but also getting connected to other people in the business.
That's so great, Joelle. There is so much awesome stuff right there. I wrote one thing down kind of early on when you were speaking, that you live from a place of abundance, meaning that you're not afraid to focus on yourself first. And the same thing with Kristina too. And I think I've seen this happen in a lot of first-year managers, is that they're afraid to take some extra time for themselves because they're afraid that how it's going to affect their business. When the truth is, when you take intentional time for yourself while also being intentional about planning your business, that's when you can really show up the best. But the last thing you want to do is put your business on the forefront 24/7 and get to a point where you burn out and you're forced to take time off because you can't function. Whereas when you can put time in your schedule to be intentional about seeking water, seeking movement, seeking, what did Kristina say, seeking sunlight, and you can do those things as you're integrating them into your business, you will show up so much differently and so much better. I appreciate both of what you shared. In the effort of kind of staying on time here, and I know that Angie and I want to bring back another aspect of the connection in the last 30 minutes that we have together. I would love for Kristina, you to share, just how you've been able to overcome adversity, because again, you have shared so much beautiful stuff today about how you've gotten to where you are. But I know that the road hasn't been easy, and you've kind of alluded to that. How have you been able to overcome adversity, and how has the experience served you for the better?
I guess I kind of had an adversity, but it was kind of hard when you had that question as well, because I was like, I didn't feel like I had anything huge, but I think it's because I belittle some stuff. But one was my fall. I think just as a whole, I had a $36K fall after having like $160,000 summer, and so like that drop was kind of a little demoralizing. And so I think one of the biggest things though was kind of talking about that, like getting a coach. It was actually September when I decided to start doing my coaching with Mike, and really separating my identity and my self-worth from my results was a really huge thing of like realizing, okay, hey, whether we do good or not, like I'm still valued, I'm still loved. Like my wife's not going to leave me. Like, everything's not going to go awful all of a sudden just because all of these things, this part is going not how I wanted to. And then also in December, my grandma actually ended up going into the hospital like the day before Christmas. She had congestive heart failure. And I'm like, my grandma's like my whole world almost. I raised me like literally firm part of my life. And so like 100% just kind of like threw me. I was like, okay, I'm not talking to anybody. I'm just focusing on this lady right now until we can get her better, get her healthy. And so that's why like the first week of the year I know was also not like high. I think we did like $1,000. And it was really like, that was when she was at the end of recovery. But I think starting to realize like, okay, hey, it's fine if I do take that time off. It's okay if I take a step back. If it's okay, I focus on myself, make sure that I'm feeding into myself. But I think really it was that like identity thing, was just making sure, like realizing what I wanted to do with the type of leader that I wanted to become. It was a call that I had with Mike, I think was a big one, was that I already have everything within me to be a top level person. Kind of framing that of like, well, why can't it be me? Why can't I be, on those levels? And it's like, I just have to do what needs to be done. I know Katie Capone's talk at SLC also was a good one, where she's like, I just wasn't doing what top people were doing. And I think that was a huge thing for me as well. And that shift of like, okay, well, I just have to do the things. That's what I kept telling Lindsay, where I was like, I'm just doing the things. I'm not doing anything crazy. I talked to my people, we said some PRs, and, we're doing development. And I think that was a huge thing, which is making that shift of like, well, why can't I be this person? It's okay if we have, pitfalls, because we're just going to go back up. It's kind of like that of course mentality of like, well, of course this is going to happen. It's okay. And really shifting away from thinking just because everything's going well means that something bad has to happen. Like the other shoe is going to drop. Right. And I think that was a huge thing, because Mike talked about that, but it was actually when I was still not in the place I wanted to be. And so now that I am, he was like, oh, well, make sure you don't like fall into that. And it was kind of like, well, no, I already like had been thinking of that constantly of like, okay, well, just because we're doing well doesn't mean something bad has to happen. Like all of a sudden our office has to do bad. We have to lose momentum. When is something bad going to happen? Instead of expecting a problem, kind of just continuing to go on to like, well, why can't we just keep doing well? Like we can because we can. Like it's just what it is. Like this is who we are. And I think that really, really started to help believing more in myself of what can be done. And keeping everything really simple for myself when I get stressed out. When I get overwhelmed, just like taking a step back and be like, okay, cool, I'm probably doing too much. What are the just like bare minimum things that need to get done for us to be at the level that we want to be at? So.
Wow, there's so much good there. I'm curious in the chat box for everyone that's here. Could you share if you resonate with what Kristina shared about when things are going well, you are almost expecting the other shoe to drop? I think that this is a common practice. I know I certainly can relate to that, Kristina, for sure. But one thing that I wanted to recognize in what you shared, and you've alluded to Mike before, but I think a big power move on your part was hiring a coach in a moment when you weren't feeling great. Yeah. You know what? I don't have all the answers. I don't have to have all the answers. There are people out there who can guide me to those answers. Let me find those people. And that's something that really strong people can recognize. And it's very clear that you recognize that. And then just listening to you speak, the awareness that you have now about yourself and about the cycles that you can go into and how you can break those cycles is extremely powerful. I loved listening to all that you just shared. And I think that was really great. Thank you. Joelle, let's go over to you. The same question about adversity. How have you been able to navigate it? What have you been able to do and how have you gotten stronger because of it?
Yeah, so immediately thinking of 2020 and adversity, it's definitely March, April of last year. And the transitions of going virtual. And I remember we thought it was just going to be a 2-week thing. And I was like, I'm not even going to pretend to like this. And of course, well, the good thing about it was like our division was really connected with each other. And I remember John Wasserman just like coming up to me. He's like, how are we doing? I was like, I hate this. This is, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it for you. I'm not a fan of this. I'm someone who very much does not like change. I'm not very innovative. I like to, hey, we know this works. And like, there were so many unknowns at that point. I was like, this is, but I remember my initial feelings and just how much I was like going against it and like digging my heels. And I just like being a creature of habit. And then just like, we didn't have options. It's like, hey, we just have the only way we could go is forward. We just got to move with it. And just over those next couple of weeks and just getting to hear the stories and everyone just kind of digging in, locking arms, sharing best practices. It just made me first off had like the biggest appreciation for this company. First off is like how quick we were to adapt and evolve, but also share and talk about what's working, like even like in an international like standpoint of just how much we were sharing with one another. It really helped me work through the limiting beliefs of this business, coming from someone that likes to be very face to face, someone who loves like the in-person side of things, especially like the in-home demo, and just like loving that, and being someone who struggled with the virtual demo in 2015, 2016, to being like, hey, this is what I'm teaching. It really helped me just really challenge myself. Like, what can we do if we allow ourselves to change, which is something that I had such a hard time looking to do. And also like, even my belief as a leader, being able to carry a team of someone that I've never actually met in person, and just it allowed me to think bigger for myself. And then also learning that change can really be a good thing. So I think that's what 2020 taught me. Also, I think another big adversity was trying to plan a wedding while doing that in 2020, and even knowing if a wedding was going to happen. We lucked out so much on our wedding day. But I was way more concerned about the business and what that's going to look like. And I think that just gave me all the conviction in the world, in our company, but also just like, hey, this is the place to be. And I think it made me really grateful for it. But I really don't like change. And that's something that I think I'm willing to jump feet first in now with new changes. Cause I know anytime anything is coming up, it's because we believe it's a good thing, and good's going to come from it. So I think it's caused me to be way more open-minded to new things.
Yeah, I'm sure many of us can relate to kind of having that oh crap moment of 2020 and how is it all going to turn out? How are we going to make this work? I really loved what you said about what can we do if we allow ourselves to change. And I think that is a key moment there of being okay with change and being adaptable and flexible, and understanding that who we are today is not going to be who we are tomorrow. And what we're doing today might not be what we're doing tomorrow, and need to be okay with that, because it's going to be the journey that we take to get us to where we want to be. So I appreciated that, Joelle. That was really great. I'd love to turn it back over to Angie for any final thoughts on what Kristina and Joelle shared. And then I know that we had one last exercise for everybody before we jump off here.
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to keep you guys spotlighted for a second while I just add a couple comments. There's I have lots and lots of notes that I want to be able to kind of summarize and share with people so that they definitely watch and listen to this, because both of you, it's just really awesome to see you be able to reflect on everything that's led you to today, and in the moment we don't fully see how important those are, but what they've allowed you to be able to see from this, basically your perspective is so valuable, right? I think that both of you would love, if you haven't read it yet, a newer book that just came out, and I think everybody should read it. It's called Think Again by Adam Grant. And just as you both spoke about, willing to change and thinking things differently and being more flexible. And if you love Brene Brown, she just interviewed him on her Dare to Lead podcast, and that could give you some, a teaser to find out what you think if you want to get the book. But I'll definitely share that. I thought that would be great. And then you both talked a little bit about this whole, self-care, oxygen mask first. And there's an article that I just read that said, why you may feel too guilty to rest and why you should stop feeling guilty. And there's a difference between being lazy and idle. And I think that's, as somebody, when you come up with this opportunity with the no ceiling on what's possible, right? There's no one's limiting you really on what you can create in this business. There's so many gifts in that. And around those gifts are those blurry edges and those lines of judging yourself, right? Being too connected to results, like Kristina talked about. Am I able to pause and not have shame for pausing, and creating I read another article just recently that it's a little small quote by Adam Grant about the walks in the afternoon that Joelle talked about, getting outside, and the walk had a personality, and it was speaking to the person and said, "You're putting too much pressure on me. I'm designed to take all of this pressure off you with this little walk." And that's an extreme example. But wow, I noticed that so many months ago. And I've been working from home for a while just with my role, but like that ability to move. I don't know if you guys ever find that when you're driving a long distance and you feel like you're really tired, so you got to pull over. And then as soon as you pull over and you get out and walk around, you're like, oh, I'm not tired. right? It's that whole idea of movement. So just such a valuable tip that you gave there, I think is really, really key. And when I listen to both of you, Joelle, you said it in different words, but what I came up hearing for me was, make your life as exciting outside of the business as it is inside. Because all that does is gives you more fuel so that when you're in the business, you're intentional because you've got these exciting places to go and people to see. And I also find that it actually helps to manage the feeling of being connected and your self-worth to sales. Because when you've got all these pockets of good things going on outside of the business, that stuff fills you up too, right? That stuff is like, and then you get reminded that you're like, oh, I'm more than the CPO on that sales report. And then when you stay consistent, like you both talked about, that always wins. It's when we let the results dictate our actions and then we end up in the other spiral. But if we can just stay, consistent with actions, regardless of results, it all ends up coming together. So I really, I'm really grateful for both of you for taking time to not just answer the questions and put thought into them, but to really take the time to be on the call today to share those with people. So, and I think this would be a great question to ask is, and maybe you ladies have this and you guys can start with the answer and then we can kind of go to the group. But if you've ever been a creature of picking a word for the year, I don't know if you've ever done that before, but I'm curious if there's a mantra or a word that you've picked for 2021.
I have not yet, but I would take some time to think about it. Because we got a book on like how to pick a word, but I didn't actually read the book to pick the word. Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Cool. Okay, great. Kristina, any word?
I guess mine would probably somewhere in this vein of like, well, why not? Or like, what if? Because that's kind of been everything that we've been doing. Like this month, I asked my team, I was like, hey, what if we broke a record this month? Like, what would that look like? And they're like, oh, that'd be cool. And I was like, yeah, what if? Like, let's do that. That would just be cool. And that's kind of been our whole entire thing. It's just like, well, why not? Or what if this? Like, and just kind of coming more with a curiosity standpoint to everything. So it's not like, hey, we have to do this. And if we don't, we're bad. It's more just like, what would that look like? Wouldn't that be cool? So
that's cool. That creates so many thoughts, right? Just those two words, what if, right? With a smile, that curious what if, right? The positive one. Yeah, 2 years ago, my word was curiosity, and that was really key for me. Last year, my word was trust. It was to trust myself and trust my instincts and to trust that I have the answer. And if I don't, it's okay. And this year, my word's pause. And it is to pause and to think again, maybe, but it is really to pause before jumping in, pause and listen. But for me, that means a lot of different things. So I'm curious with everybody else that's listening in and have joined us today, why don't you pop in the chat? Do you have a word or do you have a mantra that you've picked for 2021? Does anybody else have a word? Or refine is Shelby's. Empathy. All right, Gabby. We got belief. Allie's is belief. Great. Allison is growth. We got trust. That's what one of the benefits of doing this actually is if you haven't picked a word, sometimes this helps you and you do go, yeah, that resonates with me. I really like that. Yeah. Be better. Love that. I know a team that has that. I know someone who I think just tattooed that on himself was be better. Yes. Bold, crush it. All right. Well, what I would love, discipline. What I would love is just to take a minute, but why don't we take a couple minutes and we go into groups of 3 real quick. And I'd love for you to share, if you picked a word or a mantra or a statement, to share with the 3 of you why that word was picked. What's that mean to you? How do you intend to stay committed? How do you intend to stay reminded of the word? What will you do this year? Will you put a Post-it note somewhere you see it? Will you put it on your phone? Is it going to go on your calendar, your journal? What will you do to keep the word alive? So what we're going to do is we're going to go to groups of 3s and we'll just take like 2 minutes and get everybody about 30, 40 seconds to share. exactly why you picked that word.
No.
All right, I think I'm trying to get Alessandra into one of these rooms. I think she's having some trouble.
Would love it if maybe just raise your hand and then unmute yourself and share why that word has significance for you this year. All right, Laurel, fire away.
So I really liked trust that you shared, Angie. So that really resonated with me. But what's something Liz, I was in a group with Liz and Marissa here. So Liz shared with us was be better each day. So that's going to be her mantra. And I think that really resounded with Marissa and I both. To just like, you're going to have a lot of hiccups, especially as like opening branches, and just like each day trying to focus on something that you can do better than you did the last day. I think that spoke with all of us. And also just sharing, like having our word or our phrase on like a note card and having that around.
Awesome.
I think that's something I'm gonna pick up from Liz.
That was my next question. Actually, it was going to be after you, a couple of you more shared, was going to say, what are you going to do to keep it alive? Awesome. Great. Who else wants to share? Why? Okay, great. Carla, go ahead.
So my word was crush it. So with my territory this summer, the name that I thought of is because the territory is Kitsap County. So I thought of the Kitsap County crushers, like every single day, crushing our small goals. So as a team, we can crush the big goals that we have. And I've been already like starting to say it with my current team that I'm a part of. And like one of the reps who finished his fast start a little bit ago, he's like, yeah, you said that. And I started saying that before going into my demos, like, I'm going to go crush my demo.
That's
so it's
awesome.
like I'm already starting to incorporate it, even though I don't have my territory office open yet.
Fantastic. You're building culture. Super cool. All right. Who else wants to share? Why did you pick the word? What is the significance for you? All right, go ahead, Allison.
I picked growth just because I actually started last summer with Cutco, and I went like from rep to I'm branching this upcoming summer. And so I was kind of like thinking about the fact that like I don't really know, what the results will come down to at the end of it, but I know that after my branch summer, like I'm going to come out of it better and I'm going to grow no matter what. So just coming out of it with something and choosing to get better every day kind of aligns with like the be better, but alongside growth as well.
Yeah, Allison, the greatest thing about that is that you have control over that. I caution branches when they say, I'm going to define this summer when I win the Silver Cup. And when I win the Silver Cup, then it was a success. Or if I was number one in my division, then I was a success. I'm like, well, you can't control anyone else and what they do. You can only control you. And so when you can make your biggest target, which is growth, you have control to make that happen. So that's really, really exciting. And everybody that that is currently running an office or has run a branch, when you said, well, I know I'll grow, everyone was like this. Oh, yeah, you will grow. Yes. All right. One more, and then we'll wrap it up. Who else wouldn't mind volunteering their word and why they're picking that word? Maddie, I'm voluntoling you right now, Maddie.
Okay, I chose discipline for my word for 2021 because I'm a really good procrastinator and I don't have the best accountability for myself on things. So I just really want to commit to all these like goals and things that I wanted to do in 2021 and just have the discipline to actually like execute it.
Awesome. Joelle, do you want to share real quick why you picked bold?
Yeah, sure. So for bold, it was funny. I was like, I don't even know why the word like came to my brain when I was thinking about it, just like came out, but that's also like being bold, I guess, kind of in a way. I think bold came up as far as just like allowing myself to be in a space, to be creative, to dream big, but also like, especially being like a bigger personality, sometimes I feel like it's like, hey, make yourself smaller, calm yourself down. When in reality, it's like just breaking through and allowing it to be the way it is, you know? And it's just like, hey, be bold, but in your actions, but also in your activity and your creativity. Because I think it's something where I don't give myself room to do that at times. And I think it just kind of, that's what jumped like literally right out. So I think that the word picked me before I picked the word.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, I'm just going to wrap up with something that I read that I think also summarizes up Kristina and Joelle from sharing today, and so many of you that engage in these conversations and we get into these breakouts. And this is the thought for you. Vulnerability is not the opposite of resilience. Vulnerability builds resilience. Projecting perfection protects your ego, but it shuts people out and it stunts your growth. Revealing struggles shows humility and humanity, opening the door to new sources of support and strength. And so I wanted to leave you with that, because I think sometimes as the leader, we feel like we have to have all the answers. And if people find out we don't, we think that's going to minimize or hurt our opportunities to lead. And it is really the opposite. You know, it is true that, you know, being able to, in certain moments, show that humility and vulnerability is something that builds more strength, and it creates more resources for you to get to move forward, right? Because that is the path forward, right? So the next call for all of us is April 6th. We will have a communication piece out in the Facebook group about that. So if you haven't joined that group, please do that. I'm going to actually put a bunch of stuff in there, some other resources today. So please join that group. It's just the Vector Executive Women's Mastermind. You answer a couple questions. We'll join you to the group. And I hope you guys have a fantastic week 1 of Vector March. And we will talk again soon.
If you guys aren't in the group, I'm going to put it in the chat box right now for you to join.
Awesome.
Thank